Before we talk about money, you need to hear something uncomfortable. Most people are not poor because they lack opportunity. They are poor because they have been trained to think in ways that quietly block wealth, stability, and power. This training starts early, feels normal, and goes unquestioned for years. That is why it is so dangerous. Two people can work just as hard, wake up at the same time, struggle under the same pressure, and yet only one of them ever escapes financial stress. This is not luck, this is not talent, and it is not fate. It is the result of decisions shaped by invisible beliefs. Money does not create freedom. Thinking does. Money does not create confidence. Control does, and money does not change who you are. It only exposes the habits already inside you. If wealth were about effort alone, the hardest workers in the world would be the richest, but they are not. Many of the most exhausted people are still struggling, while others grow quietly without rushing or burning out. That contradiction is not accidental. It is the clue most people ignore. This audiobook is not here to motivate you for a moment. It is here to confront the patterns that decide your financial future long before money ever arrives. Some of what you will hear may challenge what you were taught. Some of it may make you uncomfortable. That discomfort is not a problem. It is a signal that something important is shifting. By the end of this audiobook, you will not just understand why the poor stay poor and the rich get richer. You will see how wealth is built internally first, through thinking, discipline, and responsibility, and only then appears externally as money. Listen carefully. Not to feel inspired, but to see clearly. Chapter 1. The difference is not money, it is thinking. Most people believe that money is the starting point of wealth. They believe that if they just had more income, more opportunity, or one lucky break, their life would finally change. This belief feels logical, but it is deeply misleading. Money is not the beginning of wealth. It is the result of something that happens much earlier, quietly, inside the mind. Long before a person earns their first dollar, their thinking has already shaped their future. Their habits of thought decide how they react to stress, how they interpret failure, and how they respond to opportunity. Two people can live in the same city, work the same job, face the same problems, and yet end up in completely different financial realities. The difference is not intelligence, it is not education, it is not even effort. The difference is how each person thinks when pressure appears. A poor mindset looks at money as something external and unpredictable. It feels random. It feels unfair. It feels like something controlled by luck, family background, or the system. Because of this belief, the poor mindset waits. It waits for permission. It waits for rescue. It waits for conditions to improve before taking responsibility. This waiting feels safe, but it quietly steals years. A wealthy mindset sees money as a reflection of value created over time. It is not magical. It is not mysterious. It is the outcome of solving problems, developing skills, and making disciplined decisions repeatedly. This mindset does not wait for perfect conditions. It adapts to imperfect ones. It understands that circumstances are never ideal, but progress can still be made. When difficulty appears, the poor mindset asks, "Why is this happening to me?" This question feels natural, but it leads to helplessness. It places the source of control outside the self. The wealthy mindset asks a different question. It asks, "What is this situation teaching me?" That question creates leverage. It turns problems into lessons and lessons into long-term advantage. The poor mindset avoids discomfort whenever possible. It sees stress as danger. It sees uncertainty as something to escape. Because of this, it chooses short-term relief over long-term growth. Comfort becomes the priority. even when that comfort keeps life small. The wealthy mindset understands that discomfort is not the enemy. It is the training ground. Growth only happens where discomfort is allowed to stay long enough to teach discipline, patience, and focus. This difference in thinking shows up in small, everyday decisions. When money is tight, the poor mindset looks for quick solutions. It borrows from the future. It spends emotionally. It makes decisions to feel better today, even if tomorrow becomes harder. The wealthy mindset slows down during pressure. It becomes more careful, more strategic. It understands that emotional decisions are expensive and that calm thinking preserves options. Another key difference is how failure is interpreted. The poor mindset sees failure as proof of personal weakness. One mistake feels final. One setback feels embarrassing. Because of this, risk is avoided and ambition shrinks. The wealthy mindset sees failure as feedback, not as identity, but as information. Each failure reveals what does not work, which moves the person closer to what does. This perspective removes fear and replaces it with curiosity. Over time, these thinking patterns compound. The poor mindset makes small choices that feel safe but limit growth. The wealthy mindset makes small choices that feel uncomfortable but expand capacity. The gap does not appear overnight. It grows quietly, year after year, until the results look dramatic, and people call it luck. By the time money finally appears in someone's life, the inner work has already been done. The discipline is already built. The patience is already trained. The thinking is already aligned with growth. This is why giving money to the wrong mindset does not create wealth. It creates waste. And why developing the right mindset eventually attracts money without chasing it. The real divide between the poor and the rich is not income, opportunity, or background. It is how they think when no one is watching. It is how they decide when life becomes uncomfortable. It is how they interpret problems and whether they see them as punishment or preparation. Wealth is not a reward for wanting more. It is a reward for thinking differently, consistently, and patiently over time. Chapter 2. Emotions control the poor, systems protect the rich. One of the biggest reasons people remain stuck financially has nothing to do with income, education, or opportunity. It has everything to do with emotions. Most people do not realize how deeply their emotions control their decisions, especially when money is involved. Fear, excitement, stress, and insecurity quietly take over, and decisions are made not from clarity, but from feeling. The poor mindset lives inside emotional reactions. When fear appears, it rushes to escape it. When stress rises, it seeks comfort. When excitement shows up, it acts impulsively. These reactions feel human, but they are also expensive. Emotional decisions often solve a feeling in the moment, while creating a bigger problem later. The wealthy mindset understands this early, not because rich people are naturally calm, but because they learn to protect themselves from their own emotions. They do this by building systems. A system is simply a set of rules decided in advance, when the mind is calm, not when emotions are loud. Systems decide what to do before panic has a chance to speak. When money becomes tight, the poor mindset feels urgency. That urgency pushes fast decisions, borrowing from the future, overspending for relief, or giving up long-term plans for short-term comfort. The wealthy mindset slows down under pressure. It does not rush. It becomes more disciplined, more careful, and more deliberate. It understands that urgency is rarely a signal for speed. Most of the time, it is a signal to pause. Systems remove drama from decision-making. The rich do not ask themselves how they feel about spending money each time they swipe a card. They follow rules. rules about saving, rules about investing, rules about risk. This removes emotional fatigue and prevents self-sabotage during weak moments. The poor without systems must rely on willpower, and willpower always loses to emotion when stress is high. This is why two people with the same income can end up in completely different financial situations. One reacts emotionally and hopes things work out. The other follows a system that quietly compounds results over time. One feels in control for a moment. The other actually becomes in control over years. Another dangerous emotion is comparison. The poor mindset constantly measures itself against others, what they have, how they live, what they display. This comparison creates pressure to keep up, to prove worth, to spend for appearance. The wealthy mindset avoids comparison because it understands that image is expensive and progress is invisible. Systems focus on results, not approval. Fear also plays a powerful role. The poor fear losing money, so they avoid learning how money works. They avoid investing. They avoid responsibility. This fear feels protective, but it keeps them dependent. The rich fear losing control, not money. Money can be replaced. Skills, discipline, and systems are harder to rebuild. That is why they invest in learning first and profits second. Over time, emotional living creates chaos. Systems create stability. Chaos keeps people busy but stuck. Stability allows growth. The poor often feel like life is unpredictable and unfair. The rich understand that predictability comes from preparation, not luck. This chapter is not about becoming emotionless. It is about becoming disciplined enough to protect your future from your moods. Feelings change daily. Systems do not. And in the long run, the person who follows structure always outpaces the person who follows emotion. Wealth does not belong to the most emotional or the most motivated. It belongs to those who can stay steady when pressure is highest, and steadiness is not personality. It is structure built slowly, one rule at a time. Chapter 3. The poor trade time for relief. The rich invest time for power. Most people believe time and money are the same. They are not. Money can be earned again. Time cannot. And yet most people spend their time as if it is unlimited, while guarding money as if it is rare. This reversal keeps them trapped. The poor mindset uses time to escape discomfort. Long hours are worked, not to build power, but to survive. At the end of the day, exhaustion takes over, and whatever money was earned is used to relieve that exhaustion. Entertainment, distractions, and small pleasures become rewards for enduring stress. This cycle feels necessary, but it quietly prevents progress. The wealthy mindset treats time as the real currency. Money is simply a tool created by time invested correctly. Instead of asking how much something pays today, the wealthy ask what it builds over years. They are willing to work longer without immediate reward if the outcome increases future freedom. This patience looks slow on the outside, but it compounds faster than urgency ever could. The poor mindset wants relief now. It wants certainty now. It wants validation now. Because of this, it chooses options that pay quickly but build nothing. Jobs with no growth, habits with no future, routines that repeat but never evolve. The wealthy mindset delays relief intentionally. It chooses learning over leisure, discipline over distraction, and growth over comfort, especially when no one is watching. Time invested in skill development feels unrewarded at first. There is no applause, no visible progress. This is where most people quit. The poor mindset interprets this silence as failure. The wealthy mindset understands this silence as incubation. Every valuable skill grows quietly before it becomes obvious. Another critical difference is how free time is used. The poor mindset sees free time as recovery from life. It collapses into distraction. The wealthy mindset sees free time as leverage. It uses it to study, plan, experiment, and improve. This does not mean constant work. It means intentional rest and intentional effort. There is a difference. The poor often feel busy but stagnant. Their calendar is full, yet their position never changes. The rich may appear less busy, but their actions are aligned with long-term outcomes. They remove low-value tasks and focus on activities that expand opportunity. Time spent without direction drains energy. Time spent with purpose multiplies it. One of the most dangerous habits is trading time for guaranteed comfort. A fixed routine feels safe, but safety can slowly become a ceiling. The wealthy are careful not to confuse comfort with progress. They regularly ask whether their time is building future options or simply maintaining the present. Over years, these time decisions shape identity. The poor begin to believe they are stuck. The rich begin to trust their ability to create change. This belief is not confidence by personality. It is confidence built through evidence, created by disciplined use of time. Wealth is not built by working harder forever. It is built by using time in ways that continue paying even when effort stops. Those who learn this early gain power quietly. Those who learn it late feel like life passed too quickly. Time is always being spent. The only question is whether it is being spent for relief or invested for freedom. Chapter 4. The poor seek security. The rich build control. From a very early age, most people are taught to chase security, a stable income, a predictable routine, a clear path laid out by someone else. This advice sounds responsible, and for a short time it works. But over the long term, this obsession with security becomes a silent trap. Security feels safe because it removes uncertainty. But what most people do not realize is that security is fragile. It depends on factors outside of personal control. A decision made in a distant office, a shift in the economy, a change in demand. The moment those factors change, security disappears and panic follows. The poor mindset clings to security because it fears uncertainty. It prefers a small, predictable life over a larger, uncertain one. This fear keeps people dependent. They trade autonomy for reassurance, not realizing that reassurance has an expiration date. The wealthy mindset understands something uncomfortable. True safety does not come from predictability. It comes from control over skills that are always in demand, control over income sources that are not tied to a single point of failure, control over decisions that shape the future. The rich are not reckless. They are calculated. They build control slowly. They diversify their abilities. They learn how systems work. They reduce dependence on any single employer, platform, or opportunity. This does not eliminate uncertainty, but it makes uncertainty manageable. The poor often ask, what is the safest option? The rich ask, what option gives me the most leverage? Safety feels good in the moment. Leverage feels uncomfortable at first, but leverage compounds. Safety stagnates. Another hidden danger of security is complacency. When life feels stable, growth slows, skills dull, curiosity fades. The wealthy intentionally place themselves in environments that demand learning. They stay slightly uncomfortable on purpose because discomfort sharpens awareness and keeps progress alive. Control also changes how failure is experienced. When the poor lose security, they feel exposed and helpless. When the rich face setbacks, they adjust. Control gives flexibility. It allows course correction instead of collapse. Over time, those who chase security find themselves with fewer options. Those who build control gain more choices. Choice is the real definition of wealth, not luxury, not status. Freedom to decide without fear. This is why the rich are willing to tolerate uncertainty early. They understand that short-term instability, when chosen wisely, leads to long-term stability that cannot be taken away easily. Security depends on permission, and capability, once built, stays with you. Wealth does not come from avoiding risk forever. It comes from learning how to manage it with discipline, skill, and awareness. Chapter 5. The poor react to life. The rich anticipate it. Most people live their lives in reaction. They wait for something to happen, and only then do they respond. A bill arrives and panic begins. A problem appears and decisions are rushed. An opportunity shows up and they are unprepared to take it. This pattern feels normal, but it keeps people permanently one step behind life. The poor mindset reacts because it does not plan beyond the present moment. It hopes that things will work out. It trusts that tomorrow will be easier than today. When reality interrupts that hope, stress takes over. Reaction becomes a habit, and stress becomes a constant companion. The wealthy mindset does not rely on hope. It relies on preparation. The rich assume that problems will come. They assume that markets will change. They assume that comfort will not last forever. Because of this assumption, they prepare early, quietly, and consistently. Anticipation is not anxiety. It is awareness. It is the ability to see patterns before they become crises. The rich study history, behavior, and cycles. They notice signals instead of waiting for surprises. When something changes, they are already adjusting while others are still confused. The poor often ask, "Why does this keep happening to me?" The rich ask, "What did I miss, and how do I adjust?" One question leads to frustration. The other leads to improvement. Over time, this difference compounds into stability on one side and chaos on the other. Reaction creates urgency. Urgency creates mistakes. When decisions are rushed, options shrink. Anticipation creates space. Space creates clarity. Clarity protects decision-making even during pressure. Another key difference is how resources are managed. The poor use everything they have as soon as they get it. There is no buffer, no margin. When something unexpected happens, there is nothing to absorb the impact. The rich always build margins. Time margins, financial margins, energy margins. Margins turn shocks into inconveniences instead of disasters. Living reactively also drains mental energy. Constant problem-solving leaves no room for thinking ahead. The poor feel tired, not because they work too much, but because they are always responding. The rich conserve mental energy by planning in advance. They remove repeated decisions and reduce friction wherever possible. Anticipation also shapes confidence. When you are prepared, fear loses its power. You may not control every outcome, but you control your readiness. That readiness creates calm. Calm creates better decisions. Better decisions create better outcomes. Life does not become easier for the rich. It becomes more predictable. And predictability comes from preparation, not privilege. Those who react spend their lives surviving moments. Those who anticipate spend their lives shaping direction. The future always arrives. The only question is whether you meet it prepared or surprised. Chapter 6. The poor consume to feel important. The rich build quietly. One of the least discussed reasons people stay poor is not lack of income, but the need to feel important. When life feels small, uncertain, or out of control, consumption becomes a shortcut to self-worth. Buying things, showing status, and seeking approval offer a temporary sense of value. But that value fades quickly, leaving the cycle to repeat. The poor mindset uses consumption to repair emotion. It spends to feel successful before success is real. New clothes, new gadgets, expensive experiences, and public displays become symbols of identity. These symbols feel powerful for a moment, but they do not build anything underneath. When the feeling fades, the pressure returns. The wealthy mindset delays expression. It understands that looking successful is expensive and being successful is quiet. The rich do not need to announce progress. They are more focused on building foundations than displaying results. This restraint is not about hiding. It is about priorities. Consumption creates pleasure, not power. Building creates power, not pleasure, at least not immediately. The poor choose pleasure because it is available now. The rich choose power because it lasts longer. This difference explains why some people always look busy and impressive while remaining financially fragile, and others appear ordinary while growing steadily stronger. Another hidden trap is social pressure. The poor feel watched. They feel judged. They feel the need to keep up. This pressure forces spending decisions that do not align with long-term goals. The rich step away from comparison. They measure progress privately. They understand that approval does not pay bills and applause does not create security. Quiet building requires patience. It requires the ability to sit with boredom while others chase excitement. It requires resisting the urge to prove yourself early. Most people fail here because silence feels like stagnation. The wealthy know better. Silence is often where the most important work is happening. The poor often confuse movement with progress. They are always doing something, buying something, or posting something. The rich focus on direction. They eliminate unnecessary movement and concentrate effort where it multiplies. Less noise, more leverage. Another difference lies in how income increases are handled. The poor raise lifestyle as soon as income rises. The rich raise investment first. One choice locks in pressure. The other locks in freedom. Over time, this single habit creates a massive gap. Consumption feels good today. Building feels difficult today. But tomorrow reverses the reward. Consumption leaves nothing behind. Building leaves assets, skills, systems, and options. Wealth grows where ego is quiet and discipline is loud. Those who learn to build without applause eventually receive results that speak for themselves. Chapter 7. The poor avoid responsibility. The rich accept blame. One of the hardest truths about wealth is also one of the most freeing. Nothing changes until responsibility is accepted. Many people avoid this idea because responsibility feels heavy. It feels like blame. It feels uncomfortable. But avoiding responsibility comes at a much higher cost than most people realize. The poor mindset protects the ego. When something goes wrong, it looks outward for explanations. The economy, the system, the boss, the timing. These explanations may be partially true, but they remove power. The moment blame leaves the self, the ability to change leaves with it. The wealthy mindset does the opposite. It accepts blame even when the situation was not entirely fair. Not because it enjoys guilt, but because responsibility creates control. When you accept responsibility, you gain the authority to act. Without it, you wait for others to fix your life. Responsibility does not mean self-hate. It means ownership. It means recognizing that while you may not control what happens, you control how you respond. The poor mindset confuses responsibility with punishment. The rich understand it as leverage. Avoiding responsibility feels easier in the short term. It protects emotions. It prevents discomfort, but it also freezes progress. Nothing improves when everything is someone else's fault. Growth requires the willingness to say, "I could have handled this better." Another difference appears in how feedback is handled. The poor take feedback personally. Criticism feels like an attack on identity. The rich separate behavior from identity. Feedback becomes data, not judgment. This allows rapid improvement without emotional collapse. The poor wait for better conditions. The rich create better habits. Conditions are unpredictable. The habits are controllable. This focus on what can be controlled creates momentum, even in difficult environments. Responsibility also shapes confidence. When people take ownership of outcomes, they trust themselves more. Each correction builds competence. Each lesson builds stability. Over time, this creates quiet confidence that does not depend on praise or reassurance. Blame keeps people loud and frustrated. Responsibility makes people calm and effective. The poor often feel wronged. The rich feel accountable. One leads to stagnation. The other leads to progress. Wealth is not created by those who explain life away. It is created by those who take full ownership of their direction, even when it is uncomfortable. The moment responsibility is accepted, excuses lose their power. And when excuses disappear, growth finally begins. Chapter 8. The poor seek motivation. The rich build discipline. Most people wait to feel ready before they act. They wait for motivation, confidence, or inspiration to appear. When it does, they move for a short time. When it fades, they stop. This cycle feels natural, but it keeps people inconsistent and frustrated. The poor mindset relies on motivation because motivation feels good. It creates excitement and hope. But motivation is emotional. It rises when things are going well and disappears when pressure arrives. Building a life on motivation is like building a house on weather. Eventually, it collapses. The wealthy mindset understands that progress does not come from feeling ready. It comes from acting consistently, regardless of mood. Discipline replaces motivation. Discipline is not harsh. It is protective. It removes the need to negotiate with yourself every day. The poor often ask, "How do I stay motivated?" The rich ask, "How do I remove friction?" They design routines that make action easier and distraction harder. They set rules for when to work, when to rest, and when to stop. This structure reduces mental resistance and preserves energy. Discipline also changes identity. When someone keeps promises to themselves, trust grows. Confidence stops depending on external validation. It becomes internal and stable. The poor experience bursts of confidence followed by collapse. The rich experience steady, unshakable confidence built through repetition. Another difference is how setbacks are handled. The poor lose motivation after mistakes. They see one failure as a reason to quit. The rich expect mistakes. Discipline continues even when progress feels slow or invisible. Consistency matters more than intensity. Motivation asks, "Do I feel like doing this?" Discipline asks, "Is this what I decided to do?" One depends on emotion. The other depends on identity. The poor often live reactively, adjusting behavior based on feelings. The rich live deliberately, adjusting feelings through behavior. Action changes emotion more reliably than emotion changes action. Over time, discipline compounds. Small daily actions, repeated without drama, create results that look extraordinary from the outside. The poor admire outcomes they cannot sustain. The rich build habits they do not have to admire because they live inside them. Wealth does not come to those who feel inspired the most. It comes to those who act consistently, especially when inspiration is gone. Discipline is freedom, disguised as routine. Chapter 9. The poor think small because they fear failure. Most people do not think small because they lack imagination. They think small because they fear failure. Failure feels painful, public, and personal. To avoid that pain, goals are reduced, dreams are softened, and ambition is kept reasonable. This protection feels wise, but it quietly shrinks life. The poor mindset believes that failure defines worth. One mistake feels like proof of inadequacy. One setback feels permanent. Because of this belief, risks are avoided and comfort zones are defended. Life becomes predictable but limited. The wealthy mindset sees failure differently. Failure is not identity. It is information. It reveals what does not work and guides what to adjust next. This perspective removes shame and replaces it with strategy. Failure becomes part of the process, not the end of it. Thinking small feels safe because expectations stay low, but low expectations also limit learning. Growth requires pressure. Pressure requires ambition. The rich allow themselves to aim high, not because success is guaranteed, but because the attempt itself expands capability. Another difference lies in how outcomes are measured. The poor measure success only by results. If results are not immediate, the effort feels wasted. The rich measure success by progress and feedback. Each attempt, successful or not, sharpens skill and judgment. Fear of failure also creates overthinking. The poor hesitate, analyze endlessly, and wait for certainty. The rich accept uncertainty as part of growth. They move forward with incomplete information, trusting their ability to adapt. Small thinking leads to small tolerance for discomfort. Large thinking trains resilience. The rich develop emotional endurance by facing challenges repeatedly. Each challenge makes the next one feel lighter. The poor often avoid responsibility for big goals by saying they are being realistic. The rich understand that realism without ambition becomes limitation. Real growth begins where comfort ends. Failure is not what holds people back. Fear of failure is, and fear loses its power when failure is seen as feedback, not judgment. Those who think small stay safe but invisible. Those who think bigger risk discomfort but gain expansion. Wealth grows where fear is faced, not avoided. Chapter 10. Wealth is built internally before it appears externally. By the time wealth shows up in someone's life, the work has already been done. The habits are in place, the thinking is trained, the discipline is normal. Money does not arrive to create change. It arrives because change has already happened. This is where most people misunderstand wealth. They believe money will fix fear, create confidence, and bring clarity. In reality, money amplifies what already exists. If there is confusion, money creates chaos. If there is discipline, money creates freedom. This is why sudden wealth often disappears. The mindset was never prepared to hold it. The poor mindset waits for external change. A better job, more income, better timing. This waiting feels logical, but it delays responsibility. The wealthy mindset focuses on internal alignment. Thinking, habits, and systems are adjusted first. External results follow naturally. Every chapter of this audiobook points to the same truth. Wealth is not one decision. It is a way of operating. It is how pressure is handled, how time is used, how emotions are controlled, how responsibility is accepted, and how discipline is practiced daily. These behaviors compound quietly, without recognition, until results appear inevitable. The rich do not chase money. They build value. Money follows value naturally. When you solve problems, increase skill, and make consistent decisions, wealth becomes a byproduct, not a goal. This removes desperation and replaces it with focus. Internal alignment also creates peace. When your actions match your values, stress decreases, decisions become simpler, confidence becomes stable. This inner stability is the foundation that allows wealth to grow without destroying balance. The poor often feel that life is unfair. The rich understand that life responds to patterns. Change the pattern, and the outcome changes. This understanding removes resentment and replaces it with responsibility. Wealth is not reserved for the lucky. It is built by those willing to confront uncomfortable truths and adjust their behavior accordingly. This path is quiet. It is slow at first, and it requires patience. But it is reliable. By now, the difference between the poor and the rich should be clear. It is not money. It is thinking. It is discipline. It is responsibility. And it is consistency over time. The real question is not whether wealth is possible. The question is whether you are willing to become the kind of person who can sustain it. When the internal work is done, the external result becomes unavoidable. This is the hidden truth. You do not need a miracle. You do not need permission. And you do not need perfect timing. What you need is awareness of the patterns that have been quietly shaping your life. Once you see them, you cannot unsee them. And once you cannot unsee them, change becomes a choice, not a mystery. Wealth is not about becoming someone else. It is about removing what has been limiting you, the reactions, the excuses, the habits, and the thinking that kept you small were learned. And anything learned can be unlearned. Nothing you heard in this audiobook works overnight. That is the point. Real change is slow, quiet, and often invisible. At first, but it is also permanent when done correctly. Small decisions, repeated consistently, reshape identity, and identity determines outcomes. You will leave this audiobook with the same world outside you, the same economy, the same challenges. But if you leave with a different way of thinking, you leave with a different future already in motion. The divide between those who struggle and those who build is not intelligence or effort. It is willingness. Willingness to take responsibility. Willingness to delay comfort. Willingness to stay disciplined when motivation disappears. Nothing changes the day you finish listening. Everything changes the day you begin applying. The path forward is not complicated. It is simply uncomfortable. And that is why it works.